That is what a cracked oil pressure sensor on a VW Tiguan looks like. I don't know what year it is. It's like 2012 or something. So they decided to make this out of thin, brittle plastic, like the outer covering at least. The way that it disengages is that it's locked, right? So it's got a catch on it, and it's in there like this, okay? It's in there like this, and the outer shell catches on this piece right here. So you've got to stick a very small and tiny screwdriver in there, and instead of leveraging it like some other people did, you've got to just do this in this super crowded space and get it off. So far what I've done is I've taken off the cover of this thingy. It's got 3 bolts. That one's missing. I might have to get another one from the junkyard if I can't find the one that I had. I took off this cover and it has 4 bolts. The bolts look like this. Some of these I didn't have the washers to them, so I had to make penny washers. My next step is to remove all the spark plug ignition coil thingies, take off the breather valve and the PCV valve, and then I should be able to get this cover off, because I don't think this comes off at this point. That's got a bolt and I don't really want to mess with that. I'm just going to disconnect it here. I don't have to disconnect this thingy. That's just held in place by nothing. Like, these are just held in place by like the springy thingies. So I took off this thing. Alright, so this clip comes off of this, and then you pull that straight off. Then I use these Craftsman CMMT 14136. You use that to compress the spring clips and slide it down on the thing, then release it. Then you can just pull the hoses straight down. So I took off this one. It's also got this wrap around it, and I think that's just heat shielding. Maybe it was originally supposed to be a buffer like between the spring clip and the hose, but I wasn't able to get the clip back over that piece. So I've got the spark plug things out, and I've got this thing off. So my next step is going to be to take off. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bolts that are keeping this cover on. There's a gasket, I think, that surrounds it, that's keeping this closed, but really we need to find out what's inside there. So this is the cover to the timing belt. So you can see that there's all this dust, like from the belt on it. And it's possible that the belt got contaminated with oil from the oil pan leak. And the oil pan leak might have been because of stripped bolts from the oil pan, but I don't understand how those could have gotten stripped to begin with, because they weren't taken out. So I don't understand where that leak could have started. There are 9 bolts in this thing. There was a 9th bolt that was right here. I don't understand how the oil pan leak could have got started, because it looks like, at least right now, that it was from one of the stripped bolts on the oil pan that was right next to the timing belt. But I don't understand. Alright, I don't understand how the leak on the oil pan could have gotten started on the one bolt, but the bolt hole is stripped out. So the oil pan has a stripped bolt hole right by the lower oil seal on the engine, and I don't understand how that bolt hole could have gotten stripped out, because it's not like that bolt was removed at any point. but it looks like that might be where the leak is. So I'm mentioning that because the belt, the timing belt, could have gotten contaminated and by oil from the oil leak and the oil pan from the bolt hole that was stripped, and that could have, you know, led to the belt like getting all this dust and like degrading it, decomposing it, just kind of wrecking the belt somehow. Or it could have just been from the tensioner, because look at this. I can get that off with my fingers, and that might have been what killed the engine. So there are 9 bolts on this. I got the cover on that off. So my next step is just to check the seals. You know, for the spark plug wells, those gaskets, I don't think they're really seals. The guy said that the gasket had the wrong kind of like gasket compound on it, but I don't see how that could have been like the source of the leak, because it doesn't look leaky like any more than the rest of this thing does. Like, yeah, it's red, and the guy's used to like the ultra black compound, but it doesn't look like to me that it caused any problems, at least as far as I can tell. Like maybe over here. I'm going to be using a different one this time, just so you can't complain about that and point that as the source of the problem. So next step is, I guess, going to be removing these bolts. I'm going to consult the manual and remove this camshaft sprocket thing, which is always a pain, because you got to immobilize this thing. I guess I'm just going to stick a screwdriver in there and you know, socket it off. Try not to bend it and wreck it too much. Like, I realize there's specialized tools that you can use to get it off, but I'd have to go down to O'Reilly and get it. So I also wanted to point out, as far as I can tell, you know, I won't be able to tell until I get this thing off and I'm able to rotate it, and even then I don't know if I'm going to be able to like rotate it. I don't know if I'm supposed to not rotate it independently of the thing down there. I might try to just rotate it so that I can see like all sides of the camshaft teardrop shaped wheelie doodles. But as far as I can tell, like, they're not wrecked up or anything. But the reason why I'm going to take off like these caps is because I want to check out the bearings on the underside and see if those are messed up. And also there's that horrible rattle, which, you know, is maybe from the timing chain going haywire, you know, and destroying one of the valves in there. Like, I don't see any, like, you know, metal shavings and stuff, so I don't really think there's, I just don't know. This is kind of a exploratory surgery here right now. Just a quick note, this is what I use to break the bolt on the camshaft sprocket. This big old breaker bar and the breaker bar thingy, 17 mil socket. So I also wanted to note that this, you know, I could just slide that off with my fingers, so that's part of the problem why, you know, the timing belt could have blown up the engine and possibly bent a valve. Alright, so I got the exhaust camshaft out, but I can't get this one out, and I'm running out of daylight, or actually I'm out of sunlight. I know this thing has like a key lock in it, so I could maybe pull that out, but even then, like, the angle that it's at, I don't know how to get that thing out, because this thing is in the way. This is all one big cast piece. I know that maybe there's something that I need to do, like, from this end in order to get it out. Like, get in there and mess around with something in there. To somehow get the camshaft out, but I don't know what that is. Like, I don't understand how to get that camshaft out, because that just looks like, you know, a sealed piece. So it's like, all right, fine. Even if you were to take out, you know, the entire head of the engine, you know, where the camshafts are and everything, like, how are you supposed to get the camshaft out? Because that just looks like a plug, and I'm just like, this piece moves around some, but this does not at all. So how are you supposed to get that plug out? Because it's like I keep wiggling this around and it just keeps not releasing it. And I'm afraid that if I keep doing this, I'm gonna scratch up the bearings and stuff. Like, I have tried wiggling it around a whole bunch, but my wiggling powers do not seem sufficient to getting it out of that hole. Like, I know you're supposed to take off the camshaft or the timing chain, you know, and I could do that. You'd take a tool and you'd push one of these pins out. You know, so you'd take one of the links out and then you just take out the timing chain that way. But like, as far as I can tell, there's nothing else that's holding this in there. Like, there's probably just like another bearing in there, but I don't know how to get to it. Like, that just seems like a one-way plug. Like that piece there. Like, maybe you're supposed to, maybe it's like, you know, sacrificial piece, where you're just supposed to like completely destroy it, like with, you know, with like a pick and stuff, getting that thing out. But that's all I can think of. But I'm just going to close it up for tonight. Intake 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhaust 1 and 4. A thingy labeled right. Exhaust 2 and 3. And left. So it's I 1, 2, 3, 4. E 1, 4. Right. 2, 3, left. This is the thing that the oil seal fits into. So it's got a few scratch marks, but these are on the outside, and that's just from prying the oil seal out. There's nothing that rotates around there, and there was no oil seal leak when I opened everything up. So these mostly look just scuffed, you know. They're not down to like any of the lower layers. They just kind of look like they've got some wear on them. I don't know why I've got... Okay. Like, that one kind of has some discoloration in it, but I think that's just from, you know, it's motor oil. It's going to be discolored. So it's not, you know, super shiny. Some of it has a kind of a dull matte color on it. I think they look fine. Like, I think there's, you know, for a car that's been running as long as it has since 2003, like, I don't, you know, I'm no expert in bearings, but to me they look fine. There's one that has a small pit in it. That's this one, but that's an indentation. It's not anything that's sticking out. These ones look, you know, the most flawless. They don't look like they've got that same kind of scuffing on the, you know, low point of the intake bearing. Or actually, it's sitting like this, so that's going to be the top. So these look fine to me. I'm going to make a separate video about the camshaft, but so far you know, as far as the bearings are concerned, I don't see a problem. This is the exhaust camshaft. Each one of these surfaces that the camshaft actually rests on look fine. They've all got the same wear pattern, and it looks like it's even all the way around. So it's got like more wear in the center, and if you notice, that's where that groove is on each one of the bearings. So, you know, there's nothing that I can tell is wrong with any of these. It says M AD 2 3D AE. That's got to be a code for like something. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's like you know, the thickness of the bearings that it needs to have matched up to it or something. I'm gonna make a separate video for the ignition camshaft, or the intake camshaft, I guess. I made a video earlier about how I couldn't figure out how to get the intake shaft out. Turns out this thing actually does come off. It's held in place by 2 bolts. I took that off, and this is what it looked like. So from what I can tell, it looks like maybe there was some leaking at that oil seal. So I guess I'm going to go ahead and replace this. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and replace this when I can. This is the oil seal that's on the driver's side by the intake camshaft. It says POS 58 K, probably Kia, RCA 42 8. The inside surface of this, I don't think it really matters what it looks like, because the camshaft isn't actually touching any of this part, and the only thing that's touching this is the oil seal. This is the intake or ignition camshaft, and same as with the exhaust one, it looks unremarkable. Like, none of the surfaces look like they're really marred or scratched. It's just like the wear looks a little bit different on the middle part of these, because that's where the groove is. You know, all the cams and the stuff that the actual camshaft rests on looks fine. Like, they look flawless. So there's numbers on this end of it, and I'm guessing that's like has to do with the size, you know, of this thing. So it says, focus, 03 12 17 14 95. Just an addendum. This says 4A AD, and this I can't really read. I think it's like M9, you know, 9M. Or it could be, if I'm reading it like this way, could be, yeah, no, I have no idea what that is. A1, something that looks like a 5-sided die, you know, like a, when you're looking at a die, you know, and it's got the 5 little pips on it. That's what that looks like. So there's supposedly this part called an HLA, and it's right by the timing chain of the camshaft. it says after you remove the bearing caps and timing chain, you remove the camshaft, and then you remove the HLA. So that looks like something that's smaller than a hockey puck, about the size of a Hostess Ding Dong. There is no HLA. There's this groove where the timing chain runs. There's this piece, which is just to keep the timing chain from abrading up against any metal. This thing's a little bit warm, but it's not like, I mean, look at this. That's hardly anything. I don't know what the torque specs of this thing are. I'm just going to make sure that it's tight enough. They don't even mention this part in the manual, and I looked through it and it's just not in there. Unless they're talking about this piece right here. I don't know what an HLA in this context is. I mean, I looked up the definition for what an HLA is. So this is the groove. This is the groove where the timing chain passes through. There's this piece, which barely has any wear on it. I think it's just to keep the chain from abrading against any of the metal surfaces. There's this oil seal here, and the piece that goes on top of it. Oh, you know what? I think I know what an HLA is now. I think this might be the HLA. This is the piece that sits right on the intake camshaft, and they're showing something that looks like this, right? And it looks like, you know, a small hockey puck, you know, or like a Hostess Ding Dong. And it doesn't look like any part that's in there. Like, this thing is a really small, thin oil seal. This piece has completely different geometry. But it says after you remove the camshaft bearing caps and timing chain, you remove the camshaft, and then you remove the HLA. So all I can think of is that maybe this is the HLA, but they're saying you're removing the HLA after you remove the timing chain, and you can't remove the timing chain without removing this piece first. I don't know. There's this piece, which is, you know, the piece that the timing chain passes over, and is just to keep it from abrading against any metal. But as far as I can tell, there's no such thing as an HLA. Not one that looks like their illustration anyway. I drained the oil. This is what it looks like. It looks fine. It looks like just regular old motor oil. The kind of whitish coloring in there is from the moly additive that I put in there. But it looks fine. There's not like any metal shavings or anything anywhere in there. Alright, so it's pointing to an HLA. That is, it all makes sense in hindsight. These are HLAs. So I was interpreting the drawing as showing the arrow pointing to like somewhere around here. This is an HLA, guys. That's an HLA. So I'm supposed to test these, all 16 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, there's 16. I filled them. You're supposed to fill them with oil and just push on the center part inside there by hand, and it's not supposed to move when it's filled with oil. So I've got to check all 16 of those and see if any of them move, and I'll go from there. I checked out all 16 of the HLAs, and it is HLAs, not HLA, like the manual said. And I filled each one of these with oil, and then I pressed down on these with my thumb, and it is not subtle with the ones that aren't working. Like, Like, you can really feel it, you know, when you're pushing on it. It's like kind of a spongy feedback. So I'm going to set those aside. If I end up finding non-catastrophic stuff, I'll just get 4 new HLAs, but if there is catastrophic stuff going on, I'm going to be getting a new, well, salvage yard replacement anyway. So my next step is remove at least 1 bolt from the oil pan, and check it with a thread checker, and see what the dimensions of the bolt is, and then I can go from there to drilling an oversized hole and finding a bolt that'll fit in that oversized hole. Are HLAs supposed to look like this? So these are the 4 that I determined were had too much give to them, like they felt too squishy. These ones all felt fine, to where, you know, they felt like they were just, you know, a solid piece or had very little travel to them. So these 3 have like these dark bands on them, and only 1 out of the 4 that were too squishy has that dark band on it. So like, if it's worn away and what I'm looking at is like the, you know, inner layer that doesn't have like an outer coating on it, does that mean that these are dead? Like, these 3 are dead? Like, I could go ahead and replace them just to be on the safe side, but I don't know how much these cost. I mean, are they like $18 each, you know? Like, at that point, you know, it's just looking more and more like it's better to get a new, just do a top head swap anyway. Like, I mean, I'm kind of planning on doing like the head swap, like if I can find something that's wrong with it, but like if I take it off and it ends up being like the actual ended block as the problem, or like a broken connecting rod or something, or a bad bearing, or it just ends up being the timing belt, and there's really not much point to it. But if I'm looking at these and I've got, you know, another $100 worth of parts, whereas you know, one that I could get from a salvage yard is maybe $230, you know, or $130. You know, it might be worth it to get one of those, but then that might actually have the problem with it too. You know, might have bad ones of these too. So maybe I'm gonna end up having to mix and match parts. The head is a 10mm. It's 19mm long, but it can always be longer than that because it goes straight through the oil pan and doesn't dead end anywhere. Some of the other ones do dead end in the engine, so sometimes they do need to be below 19mm. It is 6mm in diameter with 1.0 millimeter threads. I got that from a thread checker. So I guess the next size up would be 7mm with 1.0 threads, and I can just get a matching bolt that's, you know, roughly the same dimensions as this one. And that'll probably give me similar torque specs too. There's 2 bolts that hold on the air intake housing, right there and right there. Took those off. Took off the bolt and the bracket that holds the battery down. There's a bolt that goes up like that, and the nut actually comes off like that. Went ahead and took out the battery. My next step is to loosen this bolt, take that off, and set that aside. I don't think I'm going to have to get this tube off. I think it could just stay in place. I got the air filter off. There's another bolt here in here that I had to take off in order to get it loose. All those bolts are 10 millimeter. So I'm looking at this and I'm either seeing rust or it's just you know, dust mixed with the oil in there. So I'm definitely going to need to clean that before I get that whole thing off. I don't know if I need to take the spark plugs out in order to get the whole head off. I guess we'll have to wait and see about that though. I took off the ignition coils. It's got a bolt that goes there, and then this is held on by 2 nuts there. Took off the harness connector and just scooted it out of the way because this is the thing that we're trying to get off. So my next goal is to get this off, and this is some of what the mechanic was talking about when he was like, you've used the wrong gasket and stuff to seal it and it's everywhere. Well, it's just because that stuff is messy because of the tube that it's shipped in. So next time I'm at least going to use the stuff that comes in like a caulk tube and use it on that, but really it's not harming anything. You know, I'm not seeing any leaks from this thing. You know, I saw some leaks like from this. You can tell that's kind of grody, so I think some of the oil was leaking from that, but I can't see any leaks from this part at least. So I'm gonna get this off and just keep looking around for any bolts that need to come off in order to get the head loose. I can actually see the head gasket down here though. Like that's the that gives me the level that I'm gonna have to get to in order to get this whole thing off. I took out the fan. It's got 4 bolts, 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom. I might put the fan back in there temporarily just to make sure that the radiator doesn't get damaged when I'm trying to take out the exhaust. I got the coolant thermostat off. It's got 2 bolts that stick out of the cylinder head block there. It's got 3 coolant tubes that attach it. The only reason I took those off is just because it was easier to get this, like, to slide that off of those bolts. Next step I think is going to be to look up in the manual how to get the intake off. I'm trying to see if it'd be easier to take the whole intake assembly off, including the fuel rail. So the harness is connected to these 2 at this point, so I can just leave these 2 attached to the fuel rail. I definitely am going to have to take it off right here, so hopefully gas doesn't like go everywhere. I disconnected the harness from these 2 because there's no point in the harness where this piece comes off. It's just, those are hardwired into the harness with no disconnect points. Down there, this one is just connected to like the heater thingy, like the AC pump. And I think I can just leave that in place because remember the seam for the head is like here, right? So it's not actually attached to any of that. Really, I think all I need to do is disconnect the engine mount on this side, you know, the roller on this side, and prop up the engine. Because I don't know how many things are connected to the valve head, but I'm gonna see, you know, what the minimal amount of things I can detach from it are. Like, because the more I can just leave this thing intact, and, you know, take fewer things apart, the better. So I guess my next step is disconnect the fuel line there, disconnect the air intake hoses here, or I guess I could do it down there, whichever one is easier. disconnect the accelerator cable. How am I gonna do this? I don't know. This is the end of this video. This line actually did have fuel in it, so I stuffed some of that absorbent pad in there. So now it'll just evaporate off more slowly. I spilled a bunch of it down in there, so that's not gonna do wonders for all the electronics and tubing and everything down there. So hopefully I haven't ruined anything. It's so cramped that I can't really get, you know, any hands down in there to soak it up either. So it's just gonna have to sit there and evaporate. So I got 3 of the coolant or breathing hoses off. I got one of them off there. That one was too hard to pull off, so I just got it off at the other end. There's a third one right here. I don't know what the name of all these are, so I'm just gonna assume that they're breather hoses. That's just what I'm gonna call them. I messed up this hose right here. It's got some dry rotting going on, so when I was trying to pull it off, like it started cracking some, so I just left it there. Hopefully I won't have to replace that one, because, you know, I think that's meant specifically to fit into this filter here. Like, I don't think this is just a piece of straight tubing. Like, I think it's got to have this piece at the end here, which means I'd have to get a whole new filter there, like fuel filter. So the accelerator cable, I loosened this up with a 14 mil, pulled that straight up, and then to get this piece off, I push that down, and then you can take that off with supposedly with one hand. Yeah, so it just slides out of it like that. And then to push it back in, you can see that's got a slot on there. The thing fits in like that, so I can put it, you know, in and out pretty easily. All right, next step I think is gonna get this bracket piece off down here that's holding the intake manifold off. And I'm also gonna get the ground off of the back of this piece here. I think I'm just gonna leave this, you know, for absolute, you know, last. Kinda gotta do the exhaust and probably a whole bunch of stuff with the belts and everything. I got the 14 millimeter bolts and washers out from the bracket that holds the intake assembly in place. Everything smells like gas still, so I'm just huffing these fumes. So this bracket that fits the air filter on there, like those bolts were I think 10 mil. My next step after, you know, and I got the ground out, the ground bolts out. I think that was like I want to say like 13 or so. I don't know. Just I haven't really been mentioning the sizes for different sockets and everything, just because like it's trial and error every time. My next step is to get the power steering pump off, I think is what this is, which means getting this bolt off, this bolt right here off, and this one off. After that I can just slide it out and set it aside like the one guy did in his video. I'm not going to disconnect any of these lines, because otherwise I'm going to have transmission fluid everywhere. I got the power steering pump off. I only had to take off one of the bolts. It's got a really long bolt that goes through here, and then it's got a smaller, I think it was this nut that goes through the side of it. So that was the one that goes right there. My next mission, I guess, is to take off the exhaust, which I'm going to cut off the exhaust pipe. But I wanted to double check and make sure I'm not missing anything that's attached like over here. I don't think I have to take any of that off in order to get to it, but I'm just going to do it just in case. I mean, I'm just going to look just in case. I got the heat shield off of the exhaust. These all take 12 mil bolts. I tried a 13 mil on this and it ended up rounding it. Hopefully if I get a 12 mil socket I can get this off, but all of the standard sockets that I have don't fit on it. They don't fit on it tight enough. They just end up rounding it out more. And the flare nut wrench and just the regular moon wrench and stuff, the ones that have the circle on them, they just keep spinning on that thing. So I think all that's going to have to happen is I'll get a 12 mil socket and put it on there. I hope I don't have to do any like drastic measures, like somehow gluing like with JB Weld like a socket onto there and letting it sit and then like turning with that, or even taking out that double-ended threaded thing, that stud, just to get that thing out. I don't know what my next step is. I think there's like a few things over here I can get out. I might just have to move on to getting the gasket off. I'd rather save that for after I've gotten the whole head off and inspected it and checked it for leaks, before I even start on that second project. Because even if like there's a broken connecting rod, I'd be able to tell like just by looking at it from the top down. This bolt is an M6 with 1.0 threading, so it just screws in there perfectly. I got it out of that and just put it there for safekeeping. So there's another bolt holding this metal plate in place. I don't know what that thing goes to, but it's connected to the engine head thing, so I removed it. I dropped it down there. It's in there somewhere. Focus, please. Focus, please. I'm probably only going to find that once I take the whole timing belt shield off and everything. But I did find something more significant. So down there, that's like the timing belt pulley. It's just loose in there. It has come off, and I don't know, that's maybe the whole rattling I've been hearing, or part of the cause of, the engine going haywire and just stopping, So maybe there's nothing wrong with the engine head. Maybe there's just something wrong with that thing. So I've got to stop sort of working on the engine head for now, because like I don't have the 12 mil socket. So maybe I can turn my attentions to either the gasket down there, which is going to need to be replaced anyway because it's still leaking, or working on this stuff, I'd have to bike down to the auto parts store in order to rent out the thing to hold the harmonic balancer in place. I've fixed it before with just ratchet straps, fixed it in place with just ratchet straps so I could turn it. But I thought maybe it would be worth the effort to just get that thing instead. So it's either I'm going to be putting the effort into the whole ratchet strap thing, or I'm going to be putting effort into biking down to the auto parts store. I've done some things. So I haven't done any more work with the exhaust. What I did instead was I fought to get the pulley off of the water pump for probably at least 2 hours. The way that I eventually got it off was I used I used a combination of wrenches and like 2 different socket wrenches, and pretty much what I was doing was using the bolts to counter each other just so I could break them loose. So eventually I finally got them out, and the way that I did that was I had to take out the bolt from the engine roller mount thingy and raise it up enough to where I could actually get stuff onto those tiny little bolts, because there's no clearance in there where you can do anything. So I think what I'm gonna have to do is get some very long moon wrenches that are thin enough that they can fit in there and I can maneuver stuff around, because it's just there's just no room, you know. That is probably one of the tightest spots. Like, I think the only spot that's tighter than that is the is probably working on the getting the gas oil pan off. And I think next time when I'm working on that, I'm just gonna cut the exhaust. That, or I'm going to make sure that this is off and that it's loose, and that way I can just kind of maneuver it and scooch it out of the way enough to where I can move it back and forth to access the bolts. I chipped away at the JB weld that I had on the oil pan, 2 of the oil pan bolts, to kind of keep those in place. Those are the ones that had the stripped out bolt holes, and the ones that I have to tap. Harbor Freight has kits of nuts and bolts. So what I was planning on doing was going up to the next size. So the size of the oil pan bolts are 1.0, they're M6. And they don't have an M7 in their nuts and bolts kit. So I'm thinking that I'm gonna have to get like more taps, just so I can do that. Like, they've got an M8 screw, so, but that one's 1.25, and my tap and die kit doesn't include that in it. Alright, so some other stuff. There's a bolt right here. I loosened that, but just kept it in place, for future reference. That's the one where I'm just keeping it there, like, just to not lose it. I look in here and notice that that bolt's loose. And it looks like the spring for the tensioner pulley has come off. So I'm thinking what happened was I tightened the stuff to spec. I torqued it to spec, but I didn't put Loctite on that stuff. And I think what happened was they just got loosened over time. And keep in mind, I did this back in 2022 and it's 2024 now. So it's had all that time to loosen and it hasn't done it, but it did it now. So I think what's going to happen is I'm going to continue taking the head off, get the exhaust, hopefully, maybe I can get it off, I don't know. Examine the head, do that thing where you pour water in it, and see if it's water, if it's prevents stuff from going through it, to make sure that they're actually doing what they're supposed to in terms of compression and stuff. I I don't know what my next task is. It's getting cold again. The sky's looking like it's threatening rain. So I've done a lot today. I also took off the cover that's in between the tire and the harmonic balancer. So the harmonic balancer is I think that's what it's called. It's the thing that is keeps the timing belt cover on. I might just remove the timing belt cover and just leave it off, just because it's so hard to access those components. But then again, they're not protected from the elements or anything, and it's important for that stuff to be protected. So I don't know what I'm gonna do with that. I'm probably just gonna put it back how it was. I was thinking maybe I could tighten up that pulley enough to where it would put enough tension on the pulley to where I could break it and not have to do that whole thing with the ratchet straps. I don't know. I'm just gonna see how it goes. I could try. I could just. Alright, so I got everything closed up. Just put away as best I could. It's getting cold, it's cloudy. I don't know if it's going to rain soon or not. There's a fly on the inside of my car. I don't know if I got rid of it or not. But just locking everything up. My car is getting very full of my car. Like pretty much the stuff from the engine bay is just all gradually moving back into the trunk like it's a VW Bug. Yeah, that's it for today. I think tomorrow, I don't know what businesses are going to be open tomorrow. It's December 31st. I don't know. I can at least work on the harmonic pulley thing, or maybe take off the oil pan, but that means I'm not going to be able to work on the top part. But I'm not going to be able to work on the top part because I don't have the parts that I need to work on the top part.